Welcome to Running Your Stories. I'm here with Shelli Gordon. We're in Shelli's shop, Let's Run, in Stokesley. Is that right pronunciation? Fantastic shop. If you need some running gear, come in and see Shelli, and not just the gear but the great advice. As I've mentioned,
just a cup of tea.
A cup of tea. Yeah, I end up mentioning all my favourite shops on different episodes, such as Accelerate in Sheffield, which is actually about the same distance for me. It's not that much. Is it? No, it's a little bit closer. But yeah, these independent shops, I love them.
Yeah,
so,
they are.
Yeah,
they're good.
Shelli and I met. When was it? About 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, it wasn't long ago, was it?
About that time.
Yeah.
When you came over to Marsden to do a showing of your film, and I've forgotten the name of that. Go on, help me.
Through the Pain.
Through the Pain.
Yeah. That was the first viewing of it, so I was really nervous. really nervous.
But yeah, really good film, and if you get a chance to catch it, I would really highly recommend it.
Thank you.
My colleagues from Mountain Rescue were there, running friends, my parents, my daughter.
Yes, the daughter was lovely.
It was really good. So yeah, we got chatting then, and very kindly said that you do a podcast with me. And one of the things that I've been wanting to talk about with somebody who's both qualified, and I'm not talking about necessarily like medical qualifications or something like that, but somebody who's experienced and is confident they're not going to kind of do themselves a disservice by talking about sensitive things. We've been wanting to talk about mental health, how that relates to running, the running community, because it's something that unfortunately in the time between when we planned this and when it's happening, there's been another.
Yeah. We lost another one.
Yeah, we've lost another one from the community, somebody that you've known personally, which
really close friend.
Reminds us how important it is to keep talking about these things and keep putting these things forward. So thank you very much, Shelli, for volunteering to do this.
You're welcome.
And especially it would be quite understandable if we'd had to push this back in light of recent events. So again, thanks.
The more it gets out there, the better it's going to be, isn't it?
So yeah, that's the aim, to talk about some sensitive things and to try and highlight what we can do for ourselves and what we can do for others, but just in a sensible way. We're neither of us are psychologists, or
I've got a psychology degree.
You have got a psychology degree, so you're far more qualified than myself.
But it was a while ago.
Yes, but we're not here to try and teach people, but we're just trying to offer a little of our experience.
It's just first-hand experience.
Yes, it is. I've got first-hand experience with myself, with my running friends, some of the things they've been through, some of the stories that have been triggered actually by doing the podcast, and then I've started doing mental health first aid and things through Mountain Rescue, and had experiences there. So we grow, we have these experiences. So I think the starting point, and I really need to let you do some talking, is I think we'll just start by talking about it's okay not to be okay. Yeah. And let's remind everybody about that.
It's a tagline that I've been using as well, and I know it's getting a lot more publicity around it than it ever previously has done, and mental health always had its stigma, didn't it? And I still think, particularly around men, that men don't talk about things, men don't share things. There's a high percentage of men and women that are reported missing, but the statistics, there's a higher percentage of men that will actually follow that through and do something with it than there is for women. And I don't know whether that's that women will talk to their friends more rather than men, or whether they will seek help, or what it is. And it's not saying that women aren't going to do it at all, because there's still a huge percentage of women that will do, and there's still a huge percentage of women that are going through mental health problems. So everybody's at risk. It's not just men, but I think men are less likely to talk about it and more likely to think that they're the man of the family, they're the person that everybody else looks to for the support and for the help. And that they have to be the strong one and they can't say that they're struggling and just let things build up, and it's got beyond being able to get any help, and they get to the point that that is an only way out. And a lot of people won't say that they're feeling that way, and you find out at the point that it's too late.
Yeah, and that's it's definitely true. I mean, I'm talking about these things now because I'm in a strong place. I'm sort of very confident with myself now and things, but I've suffered from anxiety all my life, and I've always taken what I see as a kind of traditional man's approach of okay, you're scared of heights, so go abseiling. Okay, that was a bit scary, I'm getting a bit better at that, I'll go and do a parachute jump or 3. Now the abseiling doesn't scare me anymore, and really sort of aggressively try to fight back against things rather than actually dealing with them. And that was, you know, I always kind of thought I was making progress, and I had a full meltdown in front of friends and family. Some friends walked away, they're not friends anymore, haven't seen them since. Family, most of them just blanked the whole thing like it wasn't happening. And I was in a terrible state. I was treating people around me very, very badly. I just absolutely wasn't myself, and didn't know where to turn. I eventually came out of it. I've still never been for any help, and I'm not advising that at all. You know, so I've had, you know, some first-hand experience of being that person in that situation, whereby how to be honest, huge praise to my wife for keeping us together. That I honestly don't know how I've managed to keep the marriage together and now have the great life that I have. It is, but it was really above and beyond. You know what?
But it's tough, and you would have done the same if it was the other way around.
I'm not sure. Honestly,
I think people think that, but then when you're in that situation and it is your loved one that's going through that, and you know that's not their normal behaviour, and that's not normally how they behave or react to things, you just want to get them back to normal and back to your normal.
And so I think I kind of came out of that. Things kind of settled down, got back to some kind of normality, but I was always looking for something. There was always something still not quite right, where I felt I could go back into that. There wasn't anything stopping me from going back into that. And for me, it's actually since I started running, which was only just over 3 years ago, that things have really changed. Not that it's just the run itself that makes a difference. It's the kind of finding purpose that's both mental and physical and even sort of spiritual, and camaraderie and community there. Yes, and it's finding all of that that's really made a big change, and just given me the space then to be able to grow. And it's like I say, it's not just running that does that, but that's definitely helped.
It's a big part, I think, isn't it? Because you get to go out and you get a bit of headspace, you get to speak to like-minded people, and no one knows your background, or if they know your background, people aren't bothered. It's all about the run and the journey that you're going on, isn't it? And it's not just a race or the finishing the race, it's all the taking part of it, and like to do with the schools, it's taking part, it's not the competition. Still definitely a competition element in it, but it is the whole element of it. Is the entering it, it's the training for the race, it's the registration, it's the build up to the race briefing, and then setting off, and then out on the trails and going through your highs and your lows and getting through those lows. And I think it just builds you as a person, doesn't it? And you think, right, I've got through that. I felt really bad then, and I wanted to give up, but I haven't given up. And I think it just builds that mental strength and makes you stronger.
Absolutely. I still remember, because I started off with park runs, and I still remember thinking that I couldn't run 5k without walking some of it. And and it was purely about belief and believing in myself. At that point, I wasn't ridiculously unfit. I'd been going to the gym, I was doing mountain rescue.
So you still had.
But I didn't believe that I could run 5k without walking. And it was just purely mental. And as you say, as you build that up in yourself, that belief then transfers into other parts of your life. And that's then when we come on to the potential danger with that, of course, is if you start to rely on it.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it can become quite addictive. And I think if you're going through mental health problems, a breakdown or any part of it, it gets quite addictive, and it's very insular, isn't it? And it's all very much about what's going on with yourself. But then if you start doing your running and that gets very addictive and things, and that becomes your sole focus, then if that's removed, or you're injured, or you have a spell where work's particularly busy or family life's particularly busy and you don't get out, that anxiety level creeps back up on you again and puts you further at risk. So you can have like a counter effect.
Yeah, and unfortunately I've seen friends going through that, and the good things, recognising it, trying to support people, and so some of that I think as well is trying to support people when they're asking you about, do you think I should take some time off after this race or go straight into the next one? And and trying to help them, almost wean them off the addiction at times. Yeah,
it's getting back out to the enjoyment of it rather than next race, and I need to get quicker. I haven't gone quicker. Something's gone wrong. What's wrong with me? Everyone else has got quicker. I haven't. Or you have that DNF, which everybody does, but you can take it so personally that you were the only person that's failed on that event, or you're the only person that didn't make it past that checkpoint, or you didn't make the cutoff, and it's. You just beat yourself up on it, but everybody, the top elite runners have DNFs. Everybody does. That's just what happens, isn't it?
Yeah. To be honest, because like you say, it's about trying to make sure you keep a hold of the fun element, the reason you started doing it in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's getting outside, and it's getting outside, it's getting fresh air, and it's getting out with a group of people and talking to other people. And whether you're racing or not racing, you're sharing your experiences and you're sharing your problems. And whether that's the case that you don't ever say a word, but you listen to everybody else and you think, oh, actually, they're having a really bad time. My problems seem really insignificant now. My life's actually fantastic. I never think that. I'm the one that makes everyone else say, actually, I'm all right. But then it makes me feel better that I've made them feel better. Yeah, it's all right. You thought your life was bad. Try this.
I mean that does then obviously bring us on to that element, because especially I found since I got into sort of ultra distance, you start having really very deep conversations with fellow runners,
and with people you've never met before, and sometimes unlikely to ever meet again.
That's right. I mean, I've done races, like an 8-hour race where I spent 7.5 hours running with somebody I'd never met before, and on the Lakeland 100 I spent probably close to 20 hours running with somebody I'd never met before.
But then sometimes you make the best of friends with it. Some of my best friends are from running. So Heather and I run together a lot. We're completely best friends now, and we empathise on everything. Like, I know Heather's going to understand that. Heather will ring me, you are the only person that's going to understand this. And you make a connection. And I have with Carol Morgan, me and Carol, we get on really well. We met on the Hardmore 60 and ran together. We both had a really rubbish day. Carol had bumped her head at Runswick Bay, and I'd fallen at Staithes. Was it Staithes? Skinning Grove, I think. Because I came through Staithes with my leg looking like it'd been massacred on a Saturday. It's great. It was a talking point for the kids anyway. And it wasn't goth weekend either. But we both ended up at the same checkpoint together, and both had an awful day and ran together the last few miles of it. And it made what had been an awful day finish being a really good day. And I made it a good friend.
Yeah.
Really good friend.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I like about it, the whole sport is that I've had races where I've been almost completely on my own the whole time.
Yeah.
Really sort of enjoyed the experience and the kind of learning opportunities of how do you keep going when you are on your own and you haven't got that camaraderie going on. And then other races where I've been running with somebody pretty much the whole time. And that's one of I really like it, going into a race or an event and not knowing which it's going to be. You know, what's it going to be this time? Am I going to be?
Because things don't always go to plan. You can have it planned to everything. The nth degree, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, I'm going to get to this checkpoint and this and everything. But if it all doesn't go to plan, then where does it leave you? Does it leave you at a higher level of anxiety? Or if you think, I'm going to run with them, they fall, hurt themselves, and then you're like, what do I do? So it's again giving you that mental strength, isn't it?
It is.
You might be running with somebody, but you might not be, and it's all right if you run by yourself and you're actually okay and you can do it. And it's okay to run with somebody. It's not frowned upon. You can't not run with somebody else.
No.
That's good.
Yeah. So when we do start running with people who we've never met before, and then the life story starts coming out.
It's great. I love chatting to people.
I do as well. But I know some people do struggle sometimes when they consider that the other person's oversharing.
Yeah.
I think we're both people that probably kind of don't think that, because we're just.
No, I never do. I just go with sharing.
Yeah, I do as well. get all sorts of stories coming out on the trail, but it's quite understandable. So some people aren't comfortable with that, and the funny thing is, I tend to see more of that away from running with people because I feel I'm sort of becoming more resilient. I'm finding it easier to talk about these things. And so I try to do that sort of everywhere in life to try and prompt and help other people to talk about things. And I now find it kind of just an interesting observation when I bring something up and the other person I'm talking to will kind of look at me and think, what's the smallest amount I can say to finish this conversation politely?
Or they look and think, oh, you shouldn't be saying this around here, whereas I think it should be completely open, that it should be talked about.
No, exactly.
It's completely a normal subject, that, yes, mental health.
Yes.
It is a problem, but it's a problem because people don't talk about it.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest problems with it. I mean, the situation that I experienced a few weeks ago was out on a search of mountain rescue, and unfortunately a very young guy, 18-year-old, he'd been missing for days, and we went out to search, and you hope in the back of your mind that he's just gone and hidden from his family for that time, but unfortunately I was the one that found his body, and it wasn't like a horrific sort of horror experience. He was face down in a river. I found the body from a distance, but the things that makes you think about and relate to your own family and your own kids, it's not an experience I would ever choose to go through, but it still can become an interesting kind of learning experience if you approach it in the right way. And
if you haven't found them, his family are still wondering whether he's coming home or whether he's not coming home.
So that's it. And from a mountain rescue search point of view, all the technical elements of the search were very technically very good. From arriving at the rendezvous point to start the search to finding him was only 40 minutes.
Wow.
And he'd been missing for days. So we really, we got our stuff right. Unfortunately at that time there's nothing we can do to help other than, like you say, give closure to the family.
It does, because you've got to deal with that. But if you don't know and you haven't got a result, you're thinking that worst possibility, but then there's also that element of hope, but then back to the worst possibility again, isn't it? And you're just in a yo-yo of emotions
with your own family, that going back and forwards. So yeah, like I say, from that point of view, you kind of look at the positive of being involved with something that was done correctly and sensitively, and obviously we then handed over to the police to deal with things, and moved out of the area, which is the right thing to do. And then it shook me up. I'd be very worried about anybody that didn't shake up from an experience like that. And I think for me it was I was able to recognise that I was shaken up. I spent a lot of time with my family that weekend. I made sure I told my kids I was proud of them, and some of those things that you don't get round to saying often enough. And
it's all the things that you just carry on with life when it doesn't ever get said, isn't it?
Yeah, and so I'd say within a few days I was kind of back to normal. And then
doesn't mean you forget though, does it?
No,
but it means that
you don't forget.
Yeah, you put it in that compartment of your brain that yes, I feel like I've dealt with it, I've experienced it, I've dealt with it, I've shared it, I've told my family how much they mean to me, and I feel like I know where I belong in my own family, and things are okay.
Yes. And
I can come back to it and I can revisit it at different points and talk about it and share that experience, and it gets easier every time you share things.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I say, one of the interesting things was because I was lucky in that I had probably 3 opportunities to talk through it in a safe environment pretty much straight away. There was the debrief with the team, and people checking in with me, making sure things were okay, and then had to do a full statement to the police, but that was done in a very nice way. They came around to my house, we just sat and had a chat and wrote out the statement and things. It was all done properly, as it should be. And then there was one other guy with me at the time when we found the body, and so we arranged with some other friends to go to the pub that night and have a few beers and just be able to talk about things in a safe environment, and it really, really helped, and it meant that I was able to just cope with it, deal with it, and kind of move on.
But you've recognised that now, haven't you, after the experiences that you've had with your mental health and anxiety, that you recognise that you don't just go home, don't mention anything that's happened, and don't speak about things and keep it to yourself. You know now how to manage your own mental health as well.
Yes. And
it's still always learning, isn't it? You're still going to learn new things, and something else is always going to happen.
Absolutely.
I think, I wasn't quite prepared for that one, but you put what you've learned from the previous experience into practice, and it does make it easier than going from maybe the first experience, not having done anything to help in the meantime, and then experiencing something.
Yes.
I think then you're just in a whirlwind of something going badly wrong and not being able to resolve it.
Yeah.
And getting past that point of being able to ask for help, or people being able to step in and help you and recognise that you're having a really rough time.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I recognised as well from the sort of learning that I've been doing about how to support other people and do that sort of mental health first aid, one of the real key things was the safe space.
Yeah. And
I think that's where it kind of comes back into the running community, is that the running community becomes a safe space if we allow it to and help it to be. Generally it's one of the safest spaces that I think that we find ourselves in, compared to work, where you don't want to mention something.
You don't want to say things in case people then think you're a nutter, or people don't want to give you an extra level of responsibility in case they think, oh no, actually that might be too much, we don't want to do that, or we don't want to put on them, or you get in trouble for something at work that you probably should have got in trouble for, but you either take it badly or they deal with it in a bad way. So
that's right. So works, although work should be a safe space, it rarely is, unfortunately.
I don't think it is. It's not. No. It isn't here, but this is not really work, is it?
As I say, there are occasions, there are businesses that are a safe space, but they're very few and far between.
But I think depending how long that business has been running, they've grown up in a different world to what it is now. Yeah,
that's right. So I think trying to encourage that safe space in our running communities, I think, really
I think
good.
Most of the running community is a fantastic safe space, isn't it?
It is.
the clubs they're very on board with things. There's either designated officers, or there's people that have experienced it. There's people that have going on courses to help people that have gone through it themselves, or family members that have. And then certainly for in here, I've experienced it firsthand with Tony, which is obviously the film that you saw. And I've had, I opened the day after, so I've spoken with people from day one, and I'll always encourage people to have a conversation, and I'll talk about Tony in here, and his pictures are up on the wall up the top, and then if people don't know, I'll explain what's happened. And sometimes there's that bit of, I can see that people feel awkward that I've mentioned it and they don't know what to say to me.
Yeah.
But that's just human nature, isn't it? People don't want to say anything to upset somebody else.
Yeah, it is. And actually there's a kind of an interesting analogy that I've heard, where if you get like a disabled person in a room, all the adults in the room will kind of want to ask, what the situation is, why you're in a wheelchair. And a little kid comes in the room and they'll just ask.
And just ask, yeah. My friend doesn't have any arms, Stuart. He's fantastic. He does motivational speaking, actually. He's hilarious. You need to speak to him. So I went to one of the first talks he ever did, and he was saying that he's a parent's worst nightmare in McDonald's when he's eating his burgers with his feet. And he says that the kids are just very loudly asking why he's eating with his feet, and the parents are desperately trying to silence their children, so no, don't say a word. And then just say, well, I was born like this. And I don't know why. It was as much a surprise to me as it was to my parents. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, that's right. And it's, like I say, it's a in a lot of ways a simpler example, because with physical disabilities, you can see the disability.
Yeah, you can see. But with mental,
with mental, you can't see it. But that doesn't mean that it's not the same situation, that you should just, if you're worried about somebody, just ask. Exactly. And then ask again.
Yeah. Because people don't ask. If you come in with a plaster pot on and people say, oh, what have you done? And there's the sympathy element there, isn't it? Or the laughing element, depending how it happened. But people will be able to talk about it, and it's fine, and nobody has any concerns about asking how you broke your arm, how you broke your leg, what happened. But anything else, it's very secretive, isn't it? And they don't want to ask, and they either don't want to embarrass you, or maybe they don't want to hear the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
or won't know how to deal with it, or think that, what do I do?
Well, I try to relate things kind of back to my own experiences, because I've been in that situation where I know friends have been having a difficult time and I've not known what to say. Having learnt more about things, one of the things I found very useful actually is learning more about what the conditions are, how they're described, what OCD is, rather than just what you hear on the street kind of thing, and actually then just feeling that bit more confident that you can have the conversation with somebody, because if they start describing something to you, or they say they're on certain medication, you know what that actually means. So I think there's also a big lack of education, which means that people are scared to talk about it because nobody likes to feel stupid. And because there's such a lack of education about mental health, that people feel stupid if something comes up that they don't know what it is, and it adds to the.
It's the education as well, but I think people are very good at just getting on with their own things.
Yes.
And until it affects you, you've had no reason to know about it, or to think that people are having problems. Everyone just gets on with their own families, their own working life, and whatever it is they need to do, and you become quite insular, don't you, and very much focused on
you do.
yourself and your own, and it's just expanding that a little bit, and then and checking up on other people, and having a bit of an idea about mental health, even just an open-ended idea, or being confident enough to speak to somebody about it. You don't need to be, nobody wants you to be the doctor or the person that's going to solve it, because that's not going to happen. You just need to have a pair of ears and listen.
Yes, and again, that's where I would always go wrong in the past, because I'm an engineer. I fix things. That's what I do. I've spent years and years training my mind that there's a problem, you need to fix it. And actually, that's
sometimes
key
things just
thing.
aren't fixable. It's just managing it or finding a different way around it, isn't it?
Yeah, and I know myself now, having had experience kind of both sides of the table, that what people need the most is to be listened to.
Yeah.
They don't need any offer at all of any kind of fix or solution or anything else, and it's having that confidence that all you need to do is listen, and it's okay to ask questions, and if you're interested in if you know somebody who's just told you they're thinking of harming themselves, it's okay to ask, how do you think you're going to do it?
If it's things like blades, then an easy one to do that. I've done a suicide awareness course and I've done mental health courses too. So if they're going to use blades, put them in a freezer, a bowl of water in the freezer, and then if you think that's what you're going to do, get it out. By the time that's defrosted, do you still want to go through with that? You've had more time, it's caused a delay, you've still got access to them, you can still see them, but you can't immediately do that. So it's just trying to find different solutions as well, isn't it? But again, it's asking them, and if they're at immediate risk, then you do need to do something about it. But
if someone's at immediate risk, then call for some help.
Yeah. And there's people there to help, isn't there? You don't have to do it all or listen to it and feel helpless and think, well, I don't tell anybody else.
No, and again, I think one of the key things is, and the reason why I try to I luckily, thankfully, I've not been at that really low point. But I have been in a bad enough place to recognise what it could be like, and the reason I try to share that is to help to show others it's okay to share. First of all, it's okay to tell people, and it's okay to ask for help. And
I've had to ask for help in this last 18 months. If my friends hadn't been there and checked up on me and turned up at my house and come in here and found me in a little heap behind a counter and things like that. When the doors open to customers, and anyone could have walked in, but things were just so bad, and sometimes it was just very small things that were enough to tip you over that edge. And then for me, one of them was just the music license for her. They sent me my renewal out and doubled it and a third, and then demanding things and saying they were going to send bailiffs, but it was just came from nothing to that within about 2 days. And that was maybe 4 weeks after Tony had died, and it was just maybe one thing too many. So that was a bad day. Really bad day. And then people can be very rude to each other as well. And I think, as well as recognising that not everyone is okay and that people need some help, it's maybe thinking about your actions when a parcel hasn't arrived or something you wanted hasn't quite gone your way. It's maybe rereading the email before you send it, or maybe go for a 5-minute walk before you ring that person that you want to yell at. And I think people don't go out of their way to make things wrong for somebody else, and everyone's human. And if that person could stand up and say, I have never done anything wrong whatsoever, I have never crossed a double white line, I've never gone through an amber light, I've never offended somebody or done something wrong, then fair enough, they can go in one very small room together, because there's not going to be any more of them than that. But I think just take 5 minutes before you lose your rag with somebody, because you don't know what's going on at the other end of that email that you're sending or that call that you're making, and that could just be enough for somebody that's in a really bad place. That could just be enough to
as you say, that's the
to make
kind of
the
other side of the scale of being more open and helping people have safe space, and thinking about it when you go out with your friends. I think it's something that people are getting better at, but it's very easy to forget, as you say, when you get a bit of road rage or you ring up to complain about something. Again, you're still dealing with a person. And everyone's got feelings. Even if you think they're a really awful person, they're still a person at the end of the day. And I think people should have more respect for each other. And definitely, because the other side,
anything to be nice, does it?
It doesn't. And the other side to it is, because you can be very nice and very you can show empathy with the person, and you can still be very firm.
Yeah.
And you can
still resolve things by just speaking.
Yes, that's right. And you're more likely to get that person to actually go above and beyond and give you the extra help when you start doing that.
Yeah.
Because that's something. Say running kind of opened up the next sort of major step in my journey of sort of development. And then I've been doing other coaching where you can call it mind games, if you will. And part of that is, like you say, rereading things and saying, well, how am I actually coming across here?
Yeah.
Would I like that?
Would I like to be on the receiving end of that?
Yeah, would I like to be on the receiving end of that? So people talk about, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, and call it the gold standard. Well, why are you working to the gold standard? Why don't you go above that?
Yeah.
The gold standard should be the minimum.
Yeah.
And I still have bad days and I get things wrong.
Yeah. Everybody does though, and every single person.
But if every day you can try and get things wrong a little bit less.
Yeah.
And
learn from that, or
yes.
And then maybe if you're the one on the receiving end, maybe give some feedback from it and say, look, actually. And then just making it, just reaffirming, isn't it, that it's okay not to be okay.
It's okay,
and it's okay
for
things to go wrong, and it's okay to have a really, really bad day, or to have a bad week or a bad month or a bad year.
Yes.
It's okay.
And that's right. And so, though we'll say, obviously you're going to be polite to people, you're going to treat people with respect. That one time when you don't, when you have a bad day, when something is just gone wrong for you, that's also not the end of the world.
Yeah.
You can apologise to that person.
Yeah.
You can apologise for your mistake when you've made a mistake, and if you can't because it's a corporation or something else, well, let it go.
Yeah.
And reflect on the fact that you're going to learn a lesson from that, and you're going to try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's all we can do. Because one of the things that I've picked up from my coach is once you start exploring these things and looking into mindfulness and things, you do need to be careful not to make it a negative cycle of, okay, I've learned this, I shouldn't be doing it that way anymore. Why have I do? And then you start criticising yourself.
You're constantly changing things all the time.
Exactly. So you do have to be mindful of that, and pat yourself on the back when you've done things right. And people don't do that.
No,
well, that's right. And so I think the last question I had written on the page here, because it was the best question that was asked to me a few weeks ago, was how do you know that you're okay? I mean, because I could ask you now, are you okay today, Shelli?
Yeah. But sometimes it's hour by hour. This morning I wasn't great.
Yeah.
This evening I feel like we've made a difference in the shop today. And I never mean that from a business point of view. I'm a rubbish businesswoman. But I like people, and I like a community, and I like people to come in, and I want people to come in, and if they're having a bad day, I want them to be able to come in and say they're having a bad day. And today's been one of those days. Lots of people that things haven't been going great, and especially with our friend taking his own life last week, then I'm glad our community are all pulling together and feel that they can come here, and it's a safe space, isn't it? It's a safe place to be able to go to and know that it doesn't matter if you just come in, sit down, and then have a cup of tea, and then you go again an hour later, and that's fine. Or whether you come in with your dog, or whether you come in with your kids and they're running riot, I really don't mind. It's absolutely fine. And it's nice just for people, for me today as well, one of my customers, where he's become a friend anyway, he's come in to tell me how he got on at Great North Run. He's in his 60s, only took up running to raise some money. And he's done Great North Run. He didn't get the time he wanted, but he came in to tell me he got round, and he was really pleased with himself. And he's going to come back in again and give me full details. But but it's good to hear, and it's nice that people want to come in and to share that. So it turned from a bad day into a good day. But it doesn't mean tomorrow's going to be great.
No, but
I'll see how it goes.
I think the thing to remember is that it's been a safe space, and it's been a good day because of what you've built over time. and that's kind of how life works, as far as I can see. It's what you build over time. If we talk about like physical training, it's those weeks after weeks of doing the consistent running that means that you can go at the race and you can have a bad day, but it doesn't mean you're suddenly a bad runner. If you've done all the work, you've done all the work. That's one of the things that I kind of like about it as well, is that I think running makes you very honest like that.
Yeah. You know when you haven't put the training in. And
you can cheat yourself on some training runs, or you can be on a bike instead of running on Strava or whatever else, and you can cheat whatever you like. But if you haven't genuinely put the work in, you won't get
you're not going to get
the results that you could have had. And again, some people are naturally talented and they go a long way without the work.
Yeah.
They're
Doesn't
very
mean they
lucky.
don't feel it afterwards. Nobody sees them trying to get up and down the stairs after. I'm out of bed the next morning. But recognising when you're not okay, I think sometimes even that might come from friends or family, and you can see the worried look on their faces when you've said something and you think, actually maybe I'm not as great as I thought I was, and maybe things aren't going quite so well, and I don't know, maybe sleep patterns changing and dwelling on things more than you generally would do, and it's just recognising when it's got to a point that you need to do something about it, or that you've just had a bad day and it's just one of those days and tomorrow's a new day. But when you get up the next day and it's still, those feelings are there and nothing's changing, I think people need to recognise it sooner, because it's so much easier to deal with things when it's early on. And
the longer it goes on, the harder it is to recognise in yourself.
It's hard, and then people sometimes just think, they're just really grumpy, or they're whatever, but it's just what's going on inside, isn't it?
It is.
And I think the sooner things get dealt with and resolved, same as if you have a headache, if you leave it for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then you finally go to the doctors and then they say, it was just this, and you think, I could have got rid of that ages ago.
Yes.
And then it's the same with your mental health, isn't it? And if you going to the doctors, or you're speaking to one of the charities, and it might just be a case, actually go for some counselling and speak to somebody, and you might not want to, but you can maybe speak to somebody on the phone instead, and sometimes just hearing yourself saying it out loud, and you think, no, actually I need to do something, or I'm glad I've spoken to somebody, I feel better. Well,
that's right, and I think the wonderful thing about having those kinds of resources is that they're trained and can recognise kind of, I think I can help to recognise how much help you need as well.
Absolutely.
And I think there's definitely the time to put yourself into slightly into somebody else's hands a little bit, and
let somebody else take the pressure. That's either what they're there for, or what they're trained to do, or what they've volunteered to do, and they've volunteered to do it because they want to help.
Yes.
They've not done it just for the CV or for something else. They're there because they want to be there. Let them help. That's their role.
Yes, and as you say, it's really important to get the help early, because again, it's a classic thing with men with physical health, where they know something's not quite right and they don't want to go and see the doctor, even with physical health, and all that happens is it gets worse, and then it's much harder to deal with, and it's mentally the same as physically. If something's staying there, if it's getting worse, if it's building,
it needs to be dealt with. I had my first experience of suicide, I suppose, when I was 18, and my mum had a mental health breakdown. She never spoke to anybody, and she was one of the group of women that do follow through with it. She said unfortunately, but fortunately, she was rescued. She did a very good job of hiding it all, but she did get saved middle of the night, car in the garage, and she got sectioned for a while, and then there was lots of up and down bits afterwards, a few more attempts and things that we were told about for those ones, so we managed to do things in time. But I was 18 experiencing that, and there was nothing about at the time. So I've been probably from being 18 and then doing a psychology degree, very focused on talk, share things, you talk to people, get people talking and don't let anyone bottle things up, because it does happen, and that's the end result.
Yep.
I didn't expect to experience it with Tony, but I did experience it with Tony, and I can't do anything to change things for him, but I can do things to change things for other people.
Yes.
So, and that's what I want to do.
Very much to your credit. I think sort of for myself, I kind of want to do my bit at the level that I feel I can cope with, which is, I think, all you can ask for.
Yeah, it is. And everybody
anybody
doing something, that makes a movement, doesn't it?
It does, exactly.
And not one person can do it on their own, and if nobody did anything, there'd be no changes.
Yes. So
everyone's got a part to play.
Yeah, so hopefully we can help to just encourage one or two more people.
Yeah.
It would be wonderful if there was thousands more, but even if one or two more people to just help a little more with their
it's just
friends.
Taking the time, isn't it? Maybe taking that extra 30 seconds more, extra minute more with somebody, and
yes,
just spending time with people, isn't it?
It is. And I know I've got at least one friend that we've promised a good long conversation on a long run soon. So.
Good.
Well,
and that's the thing with running. You can run next to somebody. You don't have to make eye contact. There's none of that bit of thinking, I don't really want to speak to them, or I don't want to see their reaction when I say this is really bad at the moment. You don't want. Sometimes you think, I don't want to see their face and think, oh God, she's a nutter. So it's sometimes easier just to say it, running along, just having a chat.
Running along, having a chat, and we're all at least a little bit mad, otherwise we wouldn't be running in the rain in the middle of winter.
Yeah, and there's always the weather elements to change the conversation back onto something more light-hearted again as well, isn't there?
Yes.
With the opportunity to then go back and revisit it, but it gives you a nice balance.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to all be serious. It can be a good talk even about a bad conversation.
Certainly can. Right. Well, thanks very much, Shelli, for having a chat, and
thank you for coming to visit and seeing the bedlam in here.
I've got another pair of shoes to sneak into the house when I get home.
I'll hide your box, it'll be fine. Put them in the pack.
I'll just put them on anyway. Well, thank you very much for everybody for listening, and we'll put up some links when I share the podcast and things onto some of the fantastic charities that can help if you need the help. And basically we just want everybody to be nice to each other. Yeah. And just look out for each other. And to remember
it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah. And it's okay not to be okay. Well said. Thank you.